I left there and I went to the Barrington Area Library, which is another public library in the Chicago suburbs, and I am the public information manager there. So still very much getting a feel for my new job and trying to figure out if this was a good decision or a bad decision, but really super nice people and a great small library, so a lot of good things there, just trying to make sense of it all and keep things spinning at the same time. There is a sign-up sheet for this for all the sessions, so Andy's going to get that moving around. They just want to know who attended what, so if you would go ahead and sign in, that would be great. So my topic this morning is epic fail to epic success, or can this project be saved? Now, why do we want to talk about failure? Like the day before you were going to share your projects with everybody, somebody just stopped me in the bathroom and says, why would you want to do that? It's like you're setting people up to fail. It's not that at all. When we did this for the first year, after the first 3-day session, we had people write comments like, I feel very intimidated because everybody stood up in the front of the room and told us about these amazing projects that you did and how the public just loved them and people couldn't stop raving about them. And we felt really like, what if we try something and it's a disaster or it just doesn't go over? And so we felt like we should come back and sort of say, look, it happens to all of us. We've all been through that. And risk-taking involves the possibility of failure. And so we want to talk about how to look at failure objectively and how to analyze it when things seem to be going off the rails, to see is it best to let it go and start fresh with something new, with the lessons that you've learned, or is it best to try to analyze what you're doing and see if you can maybe just take a slightly different path and save the project before it fails completely. So I want to talk to you, when I just ask the group informally 2 things. What do you use to get yourself out of bed in the morning? How do you wake up and get where you need to be on time? Okay, specifically like a digital one, with the numbers on the screen. You use an alarm clock. What does it play to wake you up?
It has an annoying buzz.
Okay, and because you need that annoying buzz probably to really make sure you get out of your slumber. How about you?
Actually, I'm using the alarm function on my phone.
Alarm clock on your cell phone. And what does it play to wake you up? It vibrates or something? Okay.
It's a buzzy sound.
Okay, so we got a buzzing clock and a buzzing phone. Somebody else?
I have the country music station on because I hate country music so much I want to get up and turn it off.
Okay, so it's a clock radio?
Yeah, clock radio.
Clock radio, okay.
I use country music because I love country music.
There you go, okay.
There you go. But also on
The
the radio? Okay, how about you?
Toddler.
Pardon me, a toddler. Okay. She's got a toddler. My parents have been married for over 50 years. They have never owned an alarm clock, ever. And they are never late to anything. They somehow get each other up every morning. And even now that my mom only works a few hours a week, my dad's long retired, they still pretty much get up. You hear one shifting around, the other one knows, okay, it's time, let's get up in the morning. They've never been late. They have never slept through anything. So I get up now with my iPad. I had an alarm clock, it broke. I didn't want to spend another whatever amount of money, and I thought, I've got this gadget right here in the house. So I have it programmed to a song that I really like, and I'll switch it up once in a while. Don't have it too loud, but I don't have it too soft. I really hate getting up in the morning. So it's kind of a process for me. So what have we learned? That not just to get our attention, but to get us to act. In every situation, it takes something different. Or the same thing, the country music might rouse us for completely different reasons, all right? So this is something I want you to think about whenever you feel like your marketing or your big program that you had and you didn't have good attendance, what went wrong? I failed, I screwed up. But remember how challenging it is just to get a handful of people up in the morning. You'd have to have a whole arsenal of techniques to be able to do it. Now, let's talk about one other thing. This is Dulce de leche cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory restaurant. I dream about this. This is like, I always say, if you had to kill me with food, please kill me with this. Just suffocate me with it, because it's just insanely good to me. I mean, when I know I'm going to get, I'm all excited. I'm like a little child when I know we're going to the Cheesecake Factory. And they have this huge menu of cheesecakes, right? They've got, 50 kinds and all kinds of other cakes. If I make the mistake of ordering a different kind, I regret it the whole rest of the day because I blew it. I know that I love this. and I don't want anything else. Everything else is going to be disappointing. Who else has like a favorite food or something? It doesn't have to be like that insanely favorite, but do you have something that, if it's your birthday or a special occasion, I see you nodding, what would it be?
Birthday, breaded pork tenderloin.
Breaded pork tenderloin. I grew up, my mother is half Czech, and we were very big on breaded pork tenderloin for special occasions in our house. I get it, Andy.
For my birthday, Ethiopian.
Ethiopian food. Okay, wow, couldn't be more different, right? But, so again, we're just seeing that the thing that you think of as the best treat, the thing that gets you really excited, that you salivate over, that you just can't imagine how delicious it is, it can be so different. You know, mine is just like this big plate of goo, essentially. It's about as far from Ethiopian food as I think you can imagine. So again, just kind of keep that idea in your head as we talk about these things. So again, why are we talking about failure? It's inevitable. It is especially inevitable if you try to say the word especially. No, it is especially inevitable if you're dealing with risk taking. It's just part of the game. Down here, I cracked myself up. I grabbed a piece of clip art for a lottery ticket, and look, it's 7.5 million pounds. I don't know what I was thinking. I think I was hoping I was playing the lottery in England or something. But ask any person who gambles, and I'm one of them. And like my parents go, how do you do that? Why do you do that? Why do you go to a casino with your friends when you know most likely you're going to lose? Why? I mean, you're just taking good money and throwing it away, because I have that little part of my brain that loves the risk, even though I understand the failure that is very likely to come. Yeah, I've also had a couple good experiences, so that's always the worst thing. You go, well, see, I did it before, I can do it again. In a certain respect, even risk-taking at work is gambling. I also just reminded you here that we heard an overload of success stories in some of our earlier sessions, so we felt like we also wanted to talk about why it's okay to fail. I think that, in general, my experiences in library world, talking about failure or talking about things that didn't go as planned, I've seen two ways of dealing with it. One is the unicorns and rainbows approach, where everything we do is wonderful. And if you dare to be the person who says, I was a little disappointed in the attendance, you get, how dare you said something negative about what we do. It's not necessarily being negative to say this didn't meet my expectations. I wanted more. I think that that's being honest, and it's giving you something to strive for. If every program your library does is wonderful and perfect, and we have a lot of libraries like that up in the North Suburban Chicago area, they're often at the conferences, they're the ones standing up telling you about the amazing things they're doing, because they're in happy unicorn land. And sometimes when I go to their websites and I look at, say, an online service, something that they're really bragging about, and you actually can see the amount of interaction with the public, I don't see it. It's not there. It's a nice looking project. I know you're having fun with it, but I don't know if your community is. The other way of dealing with failure, of course, is this. You're in the library where, oh, whoa, everything is always bad, and we love to get together in a conference room and just bash people apart because, this program failed because they weren't doing their job, and everything I do is good, but everything you do is terrible. We have to find a happy medium between the unicorn and between the fail-tastic bookcase where things just never go right, no matter how you stack them up. So we're going to talk very specifically about project failure. We're not going to talk about a crazy board member, or we're not going to talk about budget problems, because those are conferences in and of themselves. We're going to just focus on what happens when your projects either don't get any participation or interactivity at all, or they get such a small amount that you're disappointed, or worse. I think there are really two ways in which projects fail. You set the stage, you light the lights, you put the seats out, the curtains open, and nobody shows. Or you get a handful of people. And it's so heartbreaking because you threw everything you had into this. You planned this event for months, or you've been working on this app or whatever it is, and nobody downloads it. Like 3 people do, and you know that those 3 people work in your library. Oh, we've all been there, okay? You go, oh, by website we got 50 minutes this week. 40 of us are me. Yeah, and there are ways, the people at the Google Analytics session should learn about how to filter it so your hits don't count, by the way. But the worst thing, of course, is no one shows where these people show, okay? The people with the torches. The good news is the angry mob does not show up very much. I want to make that really plain. This is worst case scenario and something had to go really wrong for these people to show up. So we're not going to worry about them too much. But either way, whatever goes wrong, in whatever way it goes wrong, you got to get your team together and you have to be prepared to objectively discuss what you did, what you didn't do, what the expectations were. Maybe I thought 100 people should come. Maybe you thought 25 was a good crowd. How did the results somehow fail to meet the expectations? Because maybe you'll find out, again, that the different people at the table feel differently about the experience, and how and if you might move forward and try again. I'm going to just read a few thoughts that I found helpful from a book called 101 Project Management Problems and How to Solve Them, written by a guy named Tom Kendrick. He was a project management executive for Hewlett-Packard and for Visa, so he's obviously dealt with some really big projects. When you get that group together to figure out what happened, you've got to remain objective. You don't scapegoat or what he calls blame storm. This isn't the opportunity to sit around the table and go, and I'm going to be totally frank with you. Having been the person in charge of a library website and now being the person in charge of all of the library public relations materials, I can tell you the first person who gets this, okay, when people don't show up. It's always my fault. And sometimes maybe it is, but we're going to look at some examples where maybe that isn't the case. And the reason you don't want to keep that blame on anyone who's at the table is because everyone on the team can be part of the solution. If you immediately make me feel like, look, you're a screw up, you blew this, we had big plans, and because of you it's all flopped, why am I going to want to help you in the future? So if you try to look at things objectively rather than who can I dump this on, you're actually going to make a lot more progress. If you're the project leader, whether in title or just by sheer force of personality, stay focused on recovery and keeping the morale up. It's kind of stuff I was just talking about. Staying positive is not about ignoring the problems or the risks, okay? If you have a public relations person who isn't doing their job, here's the thing. If you've got them gathered at the table and you start out by saying, I'd like to know what your public relations plan was for this. Can we just hear all of the ways in which you promoted the program? None of that sounds accusatory. None of that sounds negative. But if that person comes back and says, I don't know, well, I just did the usual stuff, they've now brought the blame upon themselves. You don't have to do that job. They can do it to themselves. So it's not about, like, oh, I'm just going to pretend like that person's, doing a great job even when they're not. The other thing is you've got to stay engaged with the project from start to finish, all the way through. There may not ever be a finish, but never let it go. Continue to monitor it so you can see the problems before they get too big to, sort of turn the ship around. Finally, no matter what went wrong, you really still need to celebrate the things that went right. That will make people feel so much better. It will make them feel like there's a point going on. There's nothing worse than sitting in a room and someone just focuses on the bad, and it's like, hey, but some cool stuff happened. You've got to talk about that too, or no one's going to want to stay on board with you. Some different thoughts from a writer named Daniel R. Castro, who's the author of a book called Critical Choices That Change Lives. And this stuff seems a little touchy-feely. This is a little unicorn rainbow land. I think that's okay, all right? Sometimes, I'm very much a Gen Xer. I'm very much from the sarcasm and cynicism generation, but it's okay really to talk nicely about problems at work. Most of us find it difficult to see a failure in an analytical, impartial fashion. We take failure personally. I am like the queen of this, the queen of it. When something goes wrong, I sulk and I'm mad and I don't sleep and I stew over it and chew over it endlessly. That absolutely doesn't do you any good. And own your failure if you need to. Take the responsibility for it, but you don't have to keep beating yourself over the head about it. I know that that's like real common sense, but sometimes in the moment when it's your problem, you totally lose sight of that. Another thing that task force says, you can't see the whole parade from where you stand. A seemingly hopeless situation may be exactly the disaster you fear, but it may also turn from catastrophe into triumph in ways you are unable to predict. So, you've got to always keep that in mind. You're only seeing it from one perspective. Again, maybe I thought 100 people were going to come, maybe you thought 25 were going to come, and we got 20. So in your eyes, we're doing okay. You know what I mean? It's always good to get things from the other person's perspective. Retreat does not equal defeat. It can be a valuable opportunity to regroup and rethink strategies and goals. Taking a minute, stepping back, saying, okay, this is a month-long reading program that we're doing, and the first event did not go very well. 15 people showed up. It was Deadsville. We had all this, we had music, and we had food, and there was a bunch of library employees and their families standing around. It did not go well. It doesn't mean you just go, okay, we're done. You get together, you regroup, you think, how are we going to make the next piece of this much more successful? I was thinking about the Beatles. I found this picture, in those early movies, and these are always running from screaming girls. They're literally running from their success. We're so famous that people want to tear us apart. So they're always running, and they ended up, they couldn't deal with it. They were like the most famous people in the world and monstrously creative, but they had to walk away from it and do something else in order to actually enjoy the quality of life that they had. So it's interesting, sort of like success as failure, or failure as success. Finally, don't let pride keep you stuck in a wrong decision. You need to be willing to change a course of action that isn't working, no matter how much faith, time, and money you may have put into it. I had a little aside to myself here that's probably easier for us if you, like me, have worked in libraries with very strong directors, with really strong personalities and a certain vision, and I have always dreamed about having this event, and we're going to have it, or this service, and we're going to offer it. And you do it the first time, and a handful of people show up, and she says, wasn't this wonderful? We're going to do it again. And you're sitting there going, well, why? I understand as much as anyone how hard it is to fight against that. Sometimes you can see that the train's going off the rails, but they just want you to go right along with it. So I understand that some of this is within reason. We only have so much control over what we do in the workplace. So what I thought we would do now is maybe just talk a little bit about a couple of things that have happened in my work life that I perceived as failures, and let you talk to me about what happened, and maybe ask me some questions, in a sense, objectively analyze what happened in these situations. So you could ask me, well, how was this handled? How was that done? See what you would have done differently to make these things a success. So right now I'm going to talk to you about Psych 101 at the community college. For 16 years, I worked at Harper College in Palatine, Illinois, in the library. For 11 of those years, I ran the library's bibliographic instruction department. So, Psych 101 was a big part of that. We had many sections of Psych 101 that came in every single semester. They all needed the same thing. Every Psych 101 student at that college needed the same thing. They needed a professional journal article. Within that article, there had to be some kind of empirical research taking place. And we had to show the students what the different parts of an empirical research article were. We had we had it down with science, quite frankly. We had a really good presentation on how to use PsycInfo to get that done. We could show it to them in about 10 minutes, give them another 15 or 20 minutes to find an article of interest, print it out, or email, boom, they were done. It worked great. We had one teacher who just resisted bringing them in for a little session. It was like, nope, can't spare the classroom time. Can't do it. They've got to come in on their own. So instead of giving us like a half an hour with them, granted that meant for her that's going to be many half hours because she had so many hundreds of students. She was going to have to break them up into smaller groups, that kind of thing. But what it was doing to the reference staff, it was making them insane because they would just about finish, they'd get someone set up, they finally print an article, they go back to this, how can I help you? Hi, I'm taking Psych 101 and I need it, it was like, hundreds and hundreds of times a semester. So we started to brainstorm a little bit, what can we do? So I reached out to this teacher, tried to talk her into it again, nothing doing. I said, how about this? How about if we set up some drop-in sessions? We'll open up our lab, we'll have that. I'll send you times and dates, and we'll do a big variety of them, mornings, afternoons, evenings, all scattered throughout a couple of weeks so that people can find a half an hour to come here and we'll work with them and do this. She's like, that's wonderful, that's great, send me the schedule, I'll announce it to all my classes. We even made signs, and we posted them in the computer lab, we posted them on the library doors going in and out, because we had a lot of traffic in and out. Day one comes, got the room set up, waiting for my students. How many people come? Zip. We go through 8 more of those experiences. Not one student came to take advantage of that. They kept coming to the reference desk one at a time, one at a time. So of course I get the reference librarians are all over me. Like, look, you set this up and it didn't work at all, and you know, this was a stupid idea. Because now they've blocked out time in their day to be there in the lab and do the sessions. So what would you like to know about that to help me know what I could have done differently?
My experience is drop-in sessions, unless the teacher is providing a carrot to get the students there, they are not going to at all.
Okay, that's interesting. So she's saying the teacher would have had to provide some kind of, incentive, additional incentive, perhaps, maybe some extra credit
Or a requirement that you have to attend one of these on your own time.
Okay, all right, so that's a good thing that we could have thought about. What else?
She's right. If the instructor doesn't show the interest, the students are going to pick up on that.
Mhm.
They're going to pick up on the negative vibe, oh, well, this isn't important enough to take time out of our classroom.
Sure.
Time, even if it's only 10 minutes.
Okay.
They won't do it.
All right.
The teacher even followed through on her end and told them what they're supposed to do?
I have no idea. I really don't. We don't know that. But that's an interesting thought, yes?
Well, your staff is still going to help the students who come up to the desk.
Mm-hmm.
So what benefit does this, do these 8 sessions have for the students?
Right.
They're still getting the same
Sure.
level.
In a way, they're getting even, they're
Yeah.
getting more personalized help. Yeah, maybe, yeah. We tried to make it a little more appealing by, in the posters and stuff, letting them know they could print their articles for free if they came into the lab that day, because otherwise if they print in the library, they had to pay. Anybody else got another thought, another perspective?
Could you do a traveling roadshow, or you would go into the classroom and say, this is what we're going to do, just a demonstration, this is light version of it.
We have a winner. That is what we ended up doing the next 2 semesters while I was still there, because I was really frustrated. The reference people wanted to kill me. And I kept saying, there's just got to be a way to make something happen. I mean, this is just crazy. So I went back to that teacher and said, could we come to you for 20 minutes? You've already got a computer in there, it's your big lecture hall kind of situation, big screen. I said, can we please just walk them through and give everybody a handout on this process? She was open to that idea. So that's just a little bit about, how to get creatively thinking about how do I salvage this. It's not rocket science. You might have gone back to the teacher and said, hey, can you give a few extra credit points? It might get somebody in the door. Of course, what do you do with your student who's already getting an A? They don't need the extra credit points, so that isn't going to work again. Anybody else want to add anything to that scenario or have a thought?
We've had to go into the classroom. We have to go where they are in order to get them in.
Yeah.
The big lesson is know your audience, because the audience you've got is, they're working people, they probably don't have enough time to do stuff. And if there's no incentive, they're not.
Right.
So you know your audience.
Yeah. Know your audience, that's important. Know your audience, respect their time. So, not a huge example, but just gives you an idea of something that was perceived to be a failure that we worked our way through. It did fail. It wasn't perceived, it was a disaster. But then by the next semester, we were able to have a conversation about it, cool our heads a little bit and say, all right, there's got to be another way to do this, and we found it. Let's talk about another situation, and I think that this is that perception kind of thing I'm talking about earlier, where for me, I'm expecting 100 people, you're expecting 20. So who determines whether it's a failure or not? Because so often with our sense of failure is that no one uses it or no one shows up. That's the thing that really crushes us. We put a lot of time and energy into something. We are so excited about it. We've marketed the heck out of it. Where is everybody? So this is just a little tale from my current job that maybe you can talk to me about. Was this a success or a failure? 2 children's programs that we had this fall, both of them on days off from school in our local school district. So to me, that was like win-win right there, And our children's programs tend to do pretty well. We don't do a lot of them. My former library, we had like a big splashy children's program at least once a month. Here, not quite as frequently, and they're not quite as big. We don't have the space for it. So the first one in September was the Frog Lady. There she is. Frog Lady presentations. And she was on a Friday morning at about 10:15. I see people like recoiling. That's how I felt. This program was going on, my boss said, "Are you going to go down by the Frog Lady?" And I said, "Della, my job is to get people in the door, not to interact with the animals in any way." Let them know, not interested. But the way we do our children's programs when they're big like this is we say 180 free tickets will be available in the Youth Services Department 15 minutes before the performance. So if you want to make sure you get a seat, get here early. The main reason for that is we were having, I guess, real scary overcrowding problems where like a fire marshal literally came in one time and just said, "Oh, this is great, folks." So we had to limit the size because we have a small space. So 180 free tickets available for the Frog Lady on a Friday morning when the kids were home from school. We had to turn people away. It was insane. But it was wonderfully insane because the kids were delighted. You hear them all squealing, and then she was having such a good time. She stuck around for an hour afterwards to let kids hold the various creatures that she had brought in with her. So good for her.
Did she
Now,
account for all of them?
I don't know. The way our library is, there
It
could be a big
God
bottle
knows.
up in the ceiling somewhere. I have no idea. So now, Hoojamungus. This is a Monday when the kids are off from school. In the afternoon, Hoojamungus is I have a hard time describing them. They are like a kid and family-friendly rock band, pop band, if you will. They're based out of Chicago. They play at a lot of the Chicago neighborhood festivals, and they do a lot of library gigs. Same deal, free tickets available, 15 minutes, 180 free tickets were available. How many people do you think came to this? It's a little better than that. I was expecting the same chaos as the Frog Lady, so I stayed upstairs for a while. I thought, I better go see what's going on downstairs. I walk in, I can hear them, I can hear the music going as I get toward the room. I open the door. I got about 20 adults who are sitting there completely disengaged, staring at the ceiling. Some of them are reading. And I got about 25 kids sitting on the floor who just look puzzled. No need to turn anybody away for this particular thing. And yet I know these guys who've been at other libraries and at other types of community events and have done very well.
They have done well in other libraries, but similar situation.
Yes.
All right.
So, ask me some questions, talk to me, try to get some information out of me so we can figure out what might have gone wrong here, if anything. Maybe 45 or 50 people on a Monday afternoon
That's pretty good.
is a success. I don't know. Talk to me.
What
Yes?
was the date of your first item?
It was a Friday in September. Like, it was in the morning. It's at 10:15 in the morning. You got a thought about that? You're kind of nodding.
Monday afternoon.
Monday afternoon, even though it's a day off from school. What is it?
It's a Monday because, first of all, there's nothing leading up to that over the first of the week. And then afternoon, it's nap time, it's lunchtime, it's non-library. Yeah.
They found something else to do. I'm going to tell you one thing. This day was stellar. It was beautiful outside. It was one of those golden early autumn afternoons. I went for a walk at lunch because I was like, we're not going to see this much longer. Yes, and then
Being Columbus Day, a lot of families use, because the parents and the kids are off, they'll take an extended weekend to go away.
yes, I got to tell you, Barrington, I don't live there. I work there, I don't live there. I will never live there. It's an extremely affluent community. They go away for like anything. You know, it's like, oh, the kids get out early today. Let's go to Paris. You know, it's like kind of fun.
Oh, like I said earlier, if that was the poster that was used, it's terrible.
This is not really a poster. We have we got display screens in our library, and I slapped this together. This is the picture they have. This is it, and that dog. So we kept going, what do we use? We use a dog, we use it. What does it tell you about anything? We're a bunch of people in matching shirts who sit around. I kept saying, how am I supposed to get people excited about? I'm a musician, and I'm not excited about this. So that's good. You're thinking the same way I was thinking, like, my graphic designer and I, we got together, we kept going, what do we do with this? What do we do with this?
do with
It was horrible.
The content overall?
Pardon me, what?
The content, the kids like animals.
Yeah, kids like animals. Kids like, and adults like experiences.
Right, it's experiential. Plus, they're exposed to rock and roll music every day. They're not exposed to terrifying choruses.
Well, there's a TV factor too. Frog Lady's on TV. These guys are around. They're a known
The
quantity.
bowling league.
Right.
And it seems to me like there should be a component of this program.
Because of the name.
Doing this, and it is, it's very confusing.
I also thought that, I used the picture because I wanted to make it clear that this was a group of performers. My graphic designer preferred to use the dog head. And I kept saying to her, I'm really afraid they think this is some kind of cartoon dog show. I really am. It's very hard to say. It's a family-friendly rock group. They don't play any songs that kids know.
And family-friendly can be code for Christian. And if you're not religious,
Yeah, although in a public library.
I know,
that's
but it could be.
I understand, yeah. So I mean, there are just so many issues here. Now, I want to get back to one of my original questions. Having 45 to 50 people at this program on that day, was that a success or a failure? What do you think? And just be flat out honest.
Depends on how much
That's
you spend on it.
successful.
That's, yeah.
I mean, well, yeah, as
No,
far
but
as
that's-
the stakeholders are concerned.
And it's those people had a good time, honestly.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of a watch, really. I
Okay.
don't think it's-
no, yeah, it's neither here nor
Yeah.
there, as they say. Yeah, I had really mixed feelings about this. I got sort of some bad vibes from the youth services people, like, good turnout. I gave this program and Frog Lady exactly the same treatment in terms of the marketing. If you could line up a list of what I did, each one had exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. So you can't say, well, you favored the one or the other. So clearly it was something else. So this gets back to that whole, what does your community want? And unfortunately, I really agree with Aaron. There's no survey in the world that I could have sent our community a year ago saying, would you bring your children to an afternoon music program? Then most people would go, sure, that sounds lovely. But now we had one, they didn't come. People in a survey will tell you most likely either what they think you want to hear, or you get that person who just loves to complain and who's going to use it as an outlet for all kinds of personal agenda type stuff. So I don't think you could have, sort of stopped this at the pass, before things got ugly. You sort of had to let it happen and learn from the experience. So if I was in charge of the programming for the youth department, I would say, okay, well, A, we're just not going to have the bowling shirt band back again. But B, Monday afternoon, even if it's a holiday, seems to be a terrible idea. Friday morning, I think worked real well, because then you could get on with your day. You could go out to lunch, or if the kids were ready for a nap, boom, get them home, get them a nap. Or if you're even going away for the weekend, you could still do this, depending on where you were going.
Well, you also might want to watch out for a known quantity, because if these folks play libraries around the area, a lot of people say, well,
They might
we
have
saw them
saturated.
we saw them in,
Yes.
we saw them up at the Bremen Library, or,
Yep. Yep.
whatever your public libraries are, whereas Frog Lady, does she hit all of the libraries around the area where, she might be, hey. we want
Actually, the
to-
opposite thing, what's interesting about Frog Lady is she actually came to our library a year ago, but she's so screamingly popular with the kids that bringing her back a year later. Now, if we did it again, too soon,
Right.
I think we'd be like, we did that already. So it's a real fine line.
You know what this photo says to me?
What is this photo say to you?
The thing in the back is a bar, and this is the softball group.
Right.
Softball jerseys, not bowling jerseys.
I mean, that's what these guys are.
I know. All right. So some conclusions. I think the two issues here, people don't come, whether it's nobody or if you get a small turnout or people aren't using, again, you put out this app, no one's downloading it. The only people downloading it are library people. There's a couple things you gotta look at. Your marketing, absolutely. I'm a big girl now. I can say that. I know that some of this is my responsibility. You didn't have enough. You didn't have it in the right places. You didn't target it to the right audience. Sometimes the descriptions I get from my staff are so bizarre. I have to call them and go, what's happening here? What are we doing to small children for this afternoon? I mean, it'll be like, we had a program called Wild Child Within, drumming and music and interpretive movement. The kids are doing it, you're doing it. I mean, what's happening? You know, so it's your responsibility to make sure that what gets out there is concise, but that it makes sense to someone who is not you, who doesn't work in your library.
No amount of marketing showing up witchcraft is going to make the softball league.
I know. But you know what? They had them in displays and they had a bigger turnout, so that's interesting to me.
Yeah, because they thought they were part of a softball league. Okay, sorry. Go on.
Incomplete or incorrect information. Nothing kills a program faster than having the wrong date or the wrong time in the paper, and we've all been there. Not enough notice. You know, sometimes at my place, they're big on, I'm sorry, I noticed didn't get in the newsletter, and I know it's only like 3 days from now, but we're bringing in this author. And I just want to go, look, it's like some author nobody's heard of. Again, like on a Friday night in July when everybody's out of town. You've got to think about the calendar. You've got to think about holidays, not just your own. Okay, there are other religions, there are other, you need to pay attention. Get yourself a nice online calendar that's got all that spelled out for the coming year. You're going to screw up. Yes?
Another thing with newsletters, we have newsletters that come out every other month. So the programs that are in the beginning of the first month of the newsletter are like, people don't have, you have a week.
Yeah,
right. And so now we're pushing to have signs made ahead of time, but then it doesn't coincide with being published in advance because we have events for our registration. So it's like still a mess.
That is all really the juggling act. We only have a quarterly newsletter, so you're always having to think about how soon does it need to be in people's homes, like for a program that's the first of the following month. And we've really had to adjust our schedule and our expectations. And I always worry about this stuff that's in the newsletter that isn't coming for 3 months.
Right.
Because it just, you're like, oh, that sounds good, I'll sign up for that eventually, and then it's just gone. Getting back to the softball league photo that we had, sometimes the people that you're bringing in, that you're paying good money to come to your library and do something, give you terrible supporting materials. I cannot believe, now that I'm in charge of a printed newsletter again, how difficult it is to get high-resolution photos of these people that weren't taken 35 years ago. I mean, we have this singer, and she's got a nice voice. I mean, I'm a singer, and I listen to her, and I think she's very talented, but her promo picture, it's like, come on, lady. You were 25, now you're pushing 50. That's ridiculous, because when I was publishing these with her photo, and then when I actually went to meet her the first time, I had no idea it was her. I had no idea. It's like, come on.
You do age regression on it.
I think Andy's right though, so it might not have been the right group for your audience, for your community, where in another community, it really would work out well.
That was kind of where I was going to bring in at displays. And displays, the children's programs were just packed because that community has a level of income that's, like lower to middle. They have a lot of, good heavens, unemployment right now. So people really need free things that they can do with their children.
Right.
The town where I work now, God bless them, they claim that they're experiencing all those things, but I don't see it. Literally, this is a town where kids on spring break go, well, we're going to Paris, or they go to Grandma and Grandpa's condo in Florida for a month, and they think nothing of it. So, Joe Blow's rock band that they've never heard of, it's just, why are they going to come? Because Mom and Dad have probably taken them to see Justin Bieber.
Right. Hired Justin Bieber.
Possibly Justin Bieber's come to the house. So it's, you can't,
Or if they'd have been in suits. Baseball or apparel stuff and see them.
There you go, puppets, puppets always work. So this is just getting back to our conversation about the alarm clock at the very beginning, okay? Every person in the room, as we went around, we took something different, not just to wake you up, but to get you out of bed in the morning and get you.
You meant to send out a Facebook until the last minute so that people have it.
Okay, well, that works too, and I do that all the time. Don't forget. Tomorrow afternoon, this is happening. Or the other thing is, as we've been discussing more now, programming issues. There's no interest, there's no need, there's no desire. The desire is past. It's a repeat program. We've just talked about all of these things. Similar services are already being offered by someone else. This is not only a problem with other libraries. We have a kind of funny thing in Barrington. I look out my office window at a complex called the Garlands. It is an incredibly upscale retirement community. If I came in and showed them my pay stub, they would be like, yeah, okay, never mind you. I know people, I think, have a pretty comfortable lifestyle who have gone there and who have been politely told, yeah, in your dreams, you're not ever going to live here. Like former big name government employees live there and all this kind of stuff. Well, they do all kinds of free programming. And our programming people get all, they get their knickers on and not, because it's like, I wanted to have the guy who talks about the Marshall Field's Christmas windows, and that darn Garland's got it first, Well, that's just the way it is. There's no point in us having it too. Their programs are open to the public. You don't have to live there to go there. They have music, they have all kinds of stuff, and they're right next door to us. And they're pretty, it's a nice, fancy place. I'm sure their cookies are better. I'm just saying. Or it's difficult to use, or it's unpleasant to experience. You create that app and you really love it, and you built it from the ground up, or that website or that blog or whatever it is, but other people who aren't as engaged with it as you are, get there and they're just like, what is this? Why do I want this? This is a headache. I got to sign up, and it's telling me I got to say cookies on my computer, and it's telling me I don't want to do all that. I don't want to download it to my phone. I just, if it's too much fuss, you're not going to pull them in. I mentioned loud performers because the other problem with our friends, the Poochamungus band, when I walked into that room, again, A, I'm a musician, and B, my hearing is really bad. They were so loud, it was preposterous. Because again, the room's about a third full, and they're playing at full volume, like they're at, the Riviera or something on a Friday night, and it's just like, and you see, when little kids are wincing, you're too loud, okay? Some of these things, obviously, we can't control. If that had been my program, as soon as they finished the first song, I would have walked to the band leader and said, hi, you guys are really good. I need you to turn it down a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. It's your program. You're in charge. Make it work. Because I saw people leaving. I think it was overwhelming, especially for really little kids. Who wants their little kids to sit in a room with music that's too loud? We know that's bad for them. Okay. And often the only way to find out what went wrong is also to listen to the people who did participate, even if that's painful. Even if I was to talk to people after Poochamungus, those moms and grandmas and nannies and stuff who came, and they would say, we never even heard of this group, and their songs were weird, and they were too loud. I mean, you got to deal with that, and it's better to know now, don't hire them again. I just talked a little bit before about how I don't believe that the survey, the big general, grand, what kinds of programs would you like to see? I really don't think those things work. I 100% agree with Erin. I think you've got to try, you take the risk, you see what happens, and then from there you move forward. If you're going to continue to do more or you're going to do something differently. Now, here are our friends, the Angry Mob. Again, they don't show up very often. And often when they do, it's just a couple of really vocal complainers. It's really not a mob. It feels like it to you because it's so nasty.
Boy, howdy.
I just wanted to remind you that whatever Facebook does next will get people a lot more incensed than anything that you can do in your library. I was thinking about that. Some of you are friends with me on Facebook, and I get so frustrated with people like, oh, would you stop going on and on and on about the next Facebook change? It's a free social network. You don't need it to get your paychecks or your insurance or your prescriptions filled. You made the choice that you wanted to be on it to interact with your friends and your colleagues. It's free. They actually don't have to ask you what you think about what they do, okay? So just calm down. In a way, I wish I could get people to care about library stuff half as much as they care about Facebook. Because, wow. Could you imagine if you get people to think about social issues, like helping the poor and stuff, the way they care about the Facebook interface? Wow, it would be amazing, because we'd really get stuff done. Anyway, off the soapbox. But again, what you got to think about, is it really an angry mob, or is it just a couple of really loud people who like to sort of push other people around? Is it one of your regular complainers? And not that you don't listen to those folks, okay, but there's a big difference between the regular complainer, and we have them in Barrington, we have them in Des Plaines, or that new voice that comes in complaining. I'm a lot more worried about that person. I'm worried about that person who says, I really liked your catalog before. Now you changed to this new thing, and I'm really struggling with this. I'd like to know why you changed, because I'm finding this very frustrating. I want to sit down with that person as soon as possible and say, hey, talk to me. What's not working for you? Some of the best suggestions I've ever received about what to do with a website came from those people. Rolled out the website and displayed in 2008. First day, woman sends me an email. I really like the website. I think it's nice and clean and neat and organized. But why did you hide the My Account button so far away? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because at that point, wasn't a public library user. College students couldn't care less about looking at their library account online. At least then they didn't. So I just think that was important. Here's 2 hours after I roll out, this woman saying, so I added it to the homepage immediately. When I left there this past April, I put a little blog post that I was leaving. That woman emailed me to say, I can't tell you how much it meant to me that you heard me and you changed it. There's no marketing campaign in the world that could have bought that experience for that person. So don't always write it off as, oh, here comes another crap. But I know that it's hard. When we talked about social networking and stuff in an earlier session, I quoted some stuff from Melissa Gregory, who writes for SitePoint. We're human, so our initial reaction to a negative comment is usually anger, belligerence, and or defensiveness. The worst thing you can do is react quickly without thinking the situation through, because you may only make the situation worse. Put yourself in the other person's position and be honest with yourself. Some things that you can ask yourself, is there any aspect of the complaint that's true? I had a guy, when we switched catalogs and displays, who came in and he got this close to my face and he was literally spitting on me. He was so angry about it, literally spitting. I got him to calm down by saying, first of all, we haven't rolled it out yet. Maybe you could give us a chance. He had found out about it from a neighboring library and it set theirs up in a little bit of a different way. I said, you haven't even seen it here. You got to give me a chance. But I also said, tell me the things you don't like about it, because I want to make a note of those, because if enough people tell me the same thing, those might be things we have to change. By the time we were done, he shook my hand and said, thank you for listening to me. The spitting had stopped, okay? Sometimes there's some aspect of it that was true. There were actually things personally in my head I agreed with. Can I see how the person would view the situation in this way? We get that all the time. Sometimes people misunderstand, and there's another, has something been misconstrued or misunderstood? You're going to get a lot of, my tax dollars paid for that video game you created. Well, not really. It didn't come out of the library budget. We got a grant for this. Sometimes just telling somebody that we got a grant for this, they go, oh, okay. Done. They don't have to get all mad because, you got rid of something in the library they liked and they figured you exchanged it for the video game you created. It's not like that. Is this program or service or offering not as good as it could be? Is it flawed? Is it not as advertised? Have we led people into thinking it's going to do something for them that it's actually not doing? Could it be better? And there's nothing wrong with asking that. One of the things, I saw Aaron Schmidt talk quite a few years ago at Computers and Libraries. And the one thing he talked about that always stuck with me is that idea that stop redesigning your website. Design it once and then make subtle changes over the years as needed. And that's the same thing. This program or service or app or game or whatever it is that you've been building as part of your projects here, don't then just drop it and do something new. If there's value in it, but maybe there's just aspects that aren't working, see if you can, just kind of build on that rather than just trashing the whole thing and starting fresh. It'll be, people will have the chance to grow with it and experience it as you continue to improve it. So just think about that. This is a book that I read this summer that I really recommend if you're a person that thinks about marketing, that thinks about presentation, public speaking, how to keep people engaged with and happy about your library and what it has to offer. It's called Enchantment. It's by Guy Kawasaki. Guy was a big deal Mac evangelist for a long, long time. During the time when Apple was not doing so well. He was a guy who believed in it so much that he just sort of kept at it, and it's paid off really well for Apple. But I want to read you just a little section from this book, because this is kind of my last thought about the angry mom, okay? The guy who comes in and he's spitting on you because he's so upset. First, we had a woman crying a couple weeks ago. We had a woman crying to our director because we had gotten rid of the collection of National Geographic magazines. Literally crying. Those magazines are beautiful. You're throwing away a part of history. What's the matter with you? I'm so disappointed. Can't believe this is my library. Okay, so you've got spitting, angry, you've got weeping. What do you do with that person? This is from the opening section of this book called What is Enchantment? When Karen Muller, filmmaker and author, was in the Peace Corps from 1987 to 1989, she dug wells and built schools in a village in the Philippines. One night, 17 members of the New People's Army, the armed wing of the Communist Party of the Philippines, came to her hut to interrogate her. Earlier that day, villagers had warned her that this was going to happen. And in a way, don't we know when the angry mob's coming a little bit? We roll out something new, we kind of go, oh, here it comes. So she collected two precious commodities, sugar and coffee. When the NPA arrived, she exclaimed, "Thank God you're here. I've been waiting all day. Please have some coffee. Leave your guns at the door." Her reaction baffled the leader of the group, but he took off his gun and sat down for a cup of coffee. She avoided interrogation or something worse because, according to Muller, you can't interrogate someone you're having coffee with. So that's, without knowing it, I think what happened with me and the spitting man was I tried to stay as calm as I could, and believe me, I'm not really good at that. I am German and Irish and all kinds of other things, and but I just kept saying in my head, I kept just repeating, you gotta stay calm, you gotta listen to this person. Because I don't even understand why he's so mad, but he is. And to be able to take it to a whole different place where by the end, he was grateful to me just for giving him an opportunity to speak his mind. And we could shake hands and we could leave sort of like buds, That's like a really much smaller scale version of this. But it's the same thing where you can't just go, well, what a bunch of jerks. I'm not listening to them, they're rude. Yeah, they are rude, and it could be jerks, I don't know. But you're in public service, most of you. I shouldn't say that. Maybe some of you would say, well, but I'm in a special library, it's a little different. But in the end, honestly, I think it's all public service. And we have to listen, even to the bad news sometimes, and extract from it what you can. I'm very emphatic today, I'm spitting. Extract from it what you can to make your project or your service or your program better, okay? So, after an objective analysis, which is what we do with my two scenarios, you're going to be able to be better equipped to make that decision. You're going to go, well, these drop-in sessions don't work. The teacher says she won't offer extra credit, even though we think that's a good idea. So what else can we do? Well, we're going to do a road show. We're going to take it on the road. We're going to see if that idea flies. Which among us, we look at that, we go, you know what? We're just going to write that one off. Bad decision. We all make bad decisions. Bring on the frogs, okay? The next time, we know. So whether you try the same project again, whether you revise it in some way or you walk away and you move on, just take those lessons with you. If they were going to bring in a completely different kind of children's performer next time, let's say, it's a theater group that does small-scale dramatic performances for kids or musical performances, I would still say, what day of the week are you having it? Oh, Monday? Oh, afternoon? No. I think we've learned that maybe didn't work. We don't know, but it seems like that could have been an issue. Keep that stuff with you. It doesn't have to just apply to the problem at hand. It can be used as you go forward all the time. That's what I have. Is there any failure experiences you want to share? Anything that really ate you up and you want to vent or you?
So I'm about to make a decision that I know is not going to be met well. But it's on a statewide level. Mm-hmm. So I can't have coffee with people who are going to be very upset with me.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking of how I can, when I get the angry emails, which is probably what it will be. What do you think about replying, I hear you, give me a call, let's talk about this?
I think that's good because one of the things I find with email, electronic communications in general, it's a lot easier to rant and rave because I'm at a safe distance. You know, it's like this. It's like I can't punch you, but I, you know, I mean, yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
When can I call you?
When can I call you is even better because you're making the offer to reach out to them. The only thing I will say, I'm not a phone person. I'm terrible on the phone. So that can happen. I really clam up on the phone for whatever reason, even with my nearest and dearest. They call and I'm like, what? Okay, yeah. But I'll write you a long email. So it won't work probably with everyone, but I think it's a really good way. You'll just be prepared that when you get them on the phone, they're going to want to vent at you, and you've got to just take it and, okay, all right. We've learned in our library, we say thank you a lot, even like the crying National Geographic woman. Our director just kept saying, well, thank you. I mean, thank you for taking the time to tell me that. He, inside, he was like, National Geographic, I don't have space for that anymore. But it still helped to calm her down a little bit. There's just times when people are going to be mad. I mean, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Anybody else have any advice for her? What else do you want to
Maybe head it off at bedtime.
I'm already starting to think, when I present the idea, how I'm going to present all the positive parts of this idea that everyone's going to hate.
Give them as much information about it as possible. Here's why I made the decision, or here's why we're doing it. It's not to be mean, it's not to do this, this is why we're doing it.
Yes.
Sometimes I find that like organizations, like they don't want to give everybody, the frontline people, whoever, they feel like they don't need to know all that. Sometimes, if they did know all that.
I think about Netflix.
Mhm.
And he gave us all that information, and we still hated him for it.
Yeah, that's true. I was just thinking about, we have new scanners in our library where people, if they have their library card on their phone now, it'll scan it for them. But here's the weird thing, they're not at the self-checks. To use that, you have to go to the circulation desk, which just seems so counterintuitive. So the circ staff was like, they were playing, it was kind of cute. They all had their phone out, they're playing with it, but they called me over and they're like, we think this is cool, but it's goofy.
Right.
The whole point is supposed to get, free people up and get them moving. And I said, here's a little piece they didn't tell you. The ones for the self-checks are like $32,000. And then they went, ugh. They sort of, I don't even want to get into the decision making on that because I had nothing to do with it. And I still find it a little questionable. But nevertheless, when they heard that, they thought, oh, well, then we're glad they didn't fine for the self-checks because that's crazy. That is way too much money. And we've got like 3 or 4 of them. How are you going to decide how many to buy and what else you weren't going to buy because you spent $32 or $64 or $120,000 on scanners? We'll wait and hope the price goes down. It's like all the other technology. You keep your fingers crossed. How come library technology never seems getting cheaper? But that was a situation where a little more information made them feel a little bit better about things. Not always the case, though.
Plus not close to that decision.
Some people can't think of
I feel terrible because they're talking about the whole Netflix thing, and I don't even have a television at home, so I'm so not clued into the Netflix thing, but I know that it was traumatic for folks. Anybody else got a situation? Yeah.
I have 2 failures. One is I work at a public library in Illinois, and we have a pretty large Spanish speaking population. So when I came on board, I wanted to celebrate Dia. So I thought it was great, and at that time, Dia was still, this Hispanic initiative. Now it's multicultural. So our first year we did it. We did a bilingual program with Curious George, and what we had anticipated, a fair amount of people to come because it's a mascot character and people like that. But our target population doesn't like to register for programs. We require that ahead of time. So we were completely overbooked, and it looked like discrimination for a program that where we wanted these people to come in, but we had to turn them away because our room was just full. So it was terrible. We had a full program, and all these people were here. Some people complained that it wasn't bilingual because they were non-Spanish speaking, but disaster. We were totally overfired, and luckily no one came in that day. And then we used that though to revise for the next year, and we made it just a multicultural celebration, and that turned out great.
Okay.
Everyone. Right? So it looked like success, but it really was a huge failure. I'm head of early literacy and story times, and so I'm supposed to be responsible for parent programming to inform our parents about early literacy and then extend that to our collection. And because we have early readers, what does that mean? We have the loving system, then we have transitionals, what does that mean? All this stuff. So last year we tried to hire Dr. Sophie that displays had and had a great turnout. I went to it and was like, oh, she's great, people really like her. 2 people signed up and so then we decided to reschedule for this year. It's around the same time of year, which I probably should have caught, but we're doing it in-house, and we marketed it totally differently, saying, get to know your library collection. This will be an overview, and then how to make reading enjoyable for your child. Again, 2 people are signed up right now. But what we're going to do, we're not going to cancel it. We're still going to have it. I'm adjusting my presentation to be a conversation. Say, okay, let's focus on your specific needs. We're not going to the ins and outs of lifestyle and accelerated reader, which I initially planned to do. So we'll see how that goes. But we're marketing it the same way. All of our other programs have great turnout, and it's the same thing. So part of me is like, why should I go above and beyond to push something that the community clearly doesn't want? And then the other part of me is like, yes, they should want this.
I know, yeah. It's always this struggle, right? Oh, this is so cool. If you just got to know it, you might really enjoy that in Champ's book. Okay, yeah. He talks a lot about that frustrating feeling of thinking, but I got this cool thing, and I know you're gonna love it, and people just go, no, I don't. It's really hard. It's just, but there may be other. It sounds like you're at least creatively, trying to turn it around. Let's just make it something else. We get a situation. I don't know who I do that. We have a gallery in our library. We have 2 co-curators, volunteer artists, lovely young ladies from the community who bring in artists and all different kinds of exhibits. And it's really cool. It's a cool thing to be a part of. But there also are related programs, and the attendance on those is always iffy. And the woman in charge of the programming end of it is always bugging me. Like, come on, you're not doing enough. You should be calling people. You should be calling the schools. You should be I'm like, calling the schools about a professional photography program. What am I going to call them and say? And I've dealt with the fact that these are really specialized programs. They are only going to appeal to a small segment of the community. Only so many people are interested in watercolor techniques, okay? Quite frankly. But it's lovely to look at, so I can't get upset about that. And the other thing is again, in our community, we have 1 million arts councils. So Barrington is like the Barrington Hills, the Barrington area, the North Barrington, the South Barrington, we actually call them the Barringtons. And they all have an arts group. So in a way, they can be another one. So, it's just really good to always step back and remind yourself that sometimes a program with 10 people at it, maybe even 2 people at it, you may help those people in a way that it still feels incredibly successful because they are going to walk away and feel really empowered by what you gave them.
I had a diaper. I do all the parenting for in-house stuff, and we always had terrible turnout, except for Dr. Phelan, who was phenomenal. But I had a diaper debate, and 8 people came, and that's kind of our, I say is my minimum. Yeah. But it was great. We had a raffle, we had a new mother, we had veteran mothers, and all this stuff. So that I would consider.
Yeah. So it's loud, it's perspective. All right, thank you for your time. I'm going to let you take a break and refresh and get something to drink or a snack. But thanks. And if you have any comments or stories you want to share with me later, do that because I don't need you fresh horror stories. I promise.